Exercise 2 now, and there are 7 more sentences for us to do. Each sentence has a gap for us to complete with one or more of the types of quantity at the top. In the gap, we have numbers, and this represents the number of types that we can use. So number 1, I've just bought something new jeans, and there's one of the above that we can use here. Let's start with some and any. We can't use any because this is a positive statement. However, we can use some. I've just bought some new jeans. Now we would say this for one pair of new jeans. If we want to talk about more than one pair, we would say a lot of or a few pairs of new jeans. Sentence number 2 now. Did he lose something blood? Well, let's start with some and any. This is a question, and some and any can both be used in a question. Some when we are expecting a yes, and any when there is an element of doubt or we don't know the answer. So we can use both some or any. Next, can we use many or much? Well, blood is uncountable, so we can't use many. However, we can use much. Did he lose much blood? Next, we can also use a lot of or lots of if we're saying this in conversation. So, did he lose a lot of or lots of blood? A few is not possible because blood is uncountable, and I suppose that did he lose a little blood is technically correct, but it doesn't seem to make sense. Starting with some and any, again, we can't have any because any does not work in positive statements. Some, however, is fine. We've had some good weather recently. How about many and much? Well, weather is uncountable, so we can't use many. We could, in theory, use much for this positive statement, but as we've seen, much in positive statements is very formal, and this is a conversational sentence. However, a lot of or lots of are fine in conversations, so we've had a lot of good weather recently is good. And finally, a few and a little. A few does not work because weather is uncountable, and a little good weather sounds unnatural with good. We could, however, say we've had a little bad weather recently. So our 2 are we've had some good weather and we've had a lot of good weather. Number 4 now. I don't eat something sugar. And there are 2 possibilities here. Let's start with some and any. Now, we can't use some because this is a negative sentence, first of all. Any is technically possible, but this sentence seems to stress sugar in general rather than a quantity of sugar. So I'm going to leave any. Many and much now. Sugar is uncountable, so we can't use many. Much, however, is fine, so I don't eat much sugar. Next, a lot of and lots of is also fine. I don't eat a lot of sugar. Finally, a few does not work because sugar is uncountable. A little does not work because we don't normally use a little in negative sentences. So, I don't eat much sugar, or I don't eat a lot of sugar, or simply I don't eat sugar. Sentences 5 to 7 now. Sentence 5. Do you have something friends in London? And there are 4 possibilities here. Let's start with some and any. This is a question sentence, so we can use either some if we're expecting a yes in the answer, or any if we don't know the reply. So, do you have some friends? Do you have any friends? Many and much now. Well, friends is countable plural, so we can't use much. However, we can say many. Do you have many friends in London? Next, a lot of or lots of are also fine. Do you have a lot of friends in London? And finally, A little friends does not work because friends is countable, plural. A few is technically possible, but does not seem very natural. Some would be better for that sense. Number 6 now. I have something faith in you, and there's one option from the above. Now here we are talking about faith in general, so some and any which emphasize quantity don't really work here. Meanwhile, for many and much, we can't use many because faith is uncountable. We could technically say much, but it's not very conversational because in the positive, much is formal only. A lot of, however, is fine. I have a lot of faith in you. And finally, a few does not work because faith is uncountable, and a little does not really work in this sentence. So I have a lot of faith in you, or simply I have faith in you, with no quantity. Number 7, finally, she didn't have something difficulty passing the exam. And there are 3 options from the above. Some and any, first of all, this is negative, so we can't use some. Any, however, is fine. She didn't have any difficulty passing the exam. Next, many and much. We can't use many because difficulty is uncountable. Much, however, is fine. She didn't have much difficulty. Next, a lot of and lots of are also good. She didn't have a lot of or lots of difficulty. And finally, a few does not work with difficulty because difficulty is uncountable. We can't use a little either because this is a negative sentence. And negatives do not normally work with a little or a few, in fact. So that's the end of exercise 2.